Hi everyone, welcome back to the part 2 of our magical dreamy mandala tutorial. What we're going to focus on is our 6-inch mandala, and then we're also going to be painting our 4-inch mandala as well. We will also be showing you how to attach the natural feathers with the beads, and then also the ostrich feathers on the top of the 12-inch mandala. So let's get started. What we're going to start with is we're going to be doing a quick base coat of our black acrylic matte paint. I'm going to be using the color Lamp Black in the Americana Deco Art paint. Okay, now to refresh what we're going to be doing with our paint colors, we're going to be using deep ochre. I don't know if you could see. Okay. We're going to be using cadmium yellow, honey brown, open water, desert cactus, white pearl in the metallics, mink pearl in the metallics, and our glorious gold in the metallic, khaki tan, and Mississippi mud. So those are all the colors that we will be using again for this project. We're also going to be using our pen stylus. So we're going to be using the ones that have the different sizes on one side, and then also it'll have the same size on the other side. I'm going to be using a watercolor pencil. I'm using a white watercolor pencil. This is a brand name Yoke. I'm also using my number 1 size brushes for our sweeps. This will also maybe do our 00 size paintbrush. I'm also using a square tip brush, and this is going to just be doing those edges. And I'm using a few variation sizes of the DIY mandala dotting tools as well. You can use marks or happy dotting, just keep in mind that the sizings may be slightly off. So the first thing we want to do is we want to find the center of our hole. We could do our variations by measuring with rulers. We can cut a piece of paper out. I want to show you real quick that I've come up with. I've made these templates. So roughly the templates are going to be 4 inches, 6 inches, I think 10 inches and 12 inches. Basically, I made these on my computer, and then I cut out a circle in the center on the computer so I know it's 100% accurate, and then I cut them out with my Cricut design. So I have a variation of sizes. So if I get enough feedback from these, you guys, if you really like them, I may be able to sell them as a pack in my Etsy. So leave me a comment and let me know if you're interested in something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 6-inch, and I'm going to lay it on top of my circle. It's right on point, so I'm going to be able to just mark it. And I'm just going to dot my center dot. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to grab my Protractor. You can get this at Amazon. I'll leave a link. You just want to center the dot with the center of the Protractor. I will be able to do that on the 6-inch. On the 4-inch, I will have to use a stencil for that one. So we're just going to mark every tick mark. I believe it's every 1/2 inch. So you're going to start at 0 will be on the center and go all the way up to 90 at the top. Now that we've finished our tick marks, we can get our ruler out. What's best about using the ruler that I provide is that I can make the circles, but I can also make the vertical lines. So now I'm just going to do my circles first. I'm just starting at the base of which one is the first circle, the dot, and then I'm going to move my way out. So it should look something like this. Now we're going to use, for the vertical lines, we're going to line up from top to bottom, as long as your ruler is hovering over the center point of your mandala. And then you're going to go to an angle, like so. And then you're going to move yourself all the way around in that formation. So now that we've finished mapping out our grid lines, I want you to get out your first colors, and that is the Glorious Gold, the Desert Cactus, and the Khaki Tan. These 3 colors I would like for you to mix. I'll also be mixing the Mink Pearl and the White Pearl as well. So the first ones I'm going to mix are the Gold and the Mink Pearl. Remember, I'm just adding a small bit of it, about I'd say a 1/2 teaspoon of paint. Remember to shake your bottles up because they can settle for a while if you haven't been painting. And I'm going to be using water, so I will be adding 1 droplet of water to each paint. If I need a little bit more, I would add 1 more droplet, but that's all you need for water. I'm going to get a dotting tool to mix the paints. So now that we have our paints mixed, we're ready to dot. So what we're going to use is the size 5 in the DIY Mandala Tools, and we're going to dot into the gold. This is going to be your center dot, so line it up the best you can. I like to pulsate the dot a bit and get enough on there, so I might dot it 2 or 3 times. You want to get a nice bubble formation on this center dot. we're going to grab our stylus pens now too. So we're going to do the size 2, which is the white. Now 2 is also on the end of every single stylus tool, so it really doesn't matter what color you use as long as you're using the size 2. It will be the smaller size if you're working in any other colors besides white, except for the green. So we're going to go down and up and across, and then we're going to do an X as well. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to find the first line. So find a line that is closest to you, lined up with you. Okay, so that's south. And then you follow it up and that's your north. And then we're going to have our east and west. It goes straight across. In between each of these is going to be our center point. That's where it falls. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. So we have to find the center of that 8 lines. So we count back, and then we found it in between those 2 lines. So that's why I drew an X. I would recommend drawing X's so you know where you're placing your dots. So down at the bottom is the same thing, and we're mirroring each one. Okay. So we're going to have 8 points basically. Okay, so we're going to follow up with south, and I'm going to dot as close to the gold dot as I can without it interfering with the other dots, because we don't want them mixing. I really am just eyeballing this because we are just starting to build, so you know, just trying to make sure that they have even amounts of space. If you do mess up, just get a Q-tip and damp it and then wipe it up. So we just want them to fall in between each other. You'll notice that it'll look like they're just going around, as long as we have 8 of them. I'm just going back and touching them up now to make sure that they're all evenly distributed. So it looks like a little flower. So we finished our flower, so now our next step is going to be to create these little leaf patterns. So I'm going to get my green out, but first I'm going to explain how to create these little leaf shapes. What I want to do is basically have 6 leaves to this project, this second part. I'm going to be creating one below the bottom dot that I did. So the south and north will be lined up with the dots, but then I'm going to have to stagger the other 4 leaves. So the 4 leaves will have to fall in between those dots that you have. So it's going to be located in between the 2 dots there, like that, and then it'll fall a little bit over the circle that you created as well, the first line circle. We're going to mix our green, our cactus green, a droplet of water with it, and mix this up. Again, I'm just going to use the number 2. You could use any size. I would prefer a smaller size though, because what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the leaf itself. So I just start from the center and I pull up and pull down, and I pull around each side. And I'm just trying to make that small little leaf shape, okay? We'll do that for each one. Okay, so that's what this should look like. You have your 6 points now, okay? Okay. So I'm going to get the mink pearl with the size number 1, and I'm going to now walk the dots. And now I'm going to do the next color, which is the green, and I'm going to use the size 2. And I'm just going to walk those dots as well around the mink pearl. Just try your best to make sure that they stay nice and uniformed, okay? So the next color is going to be our khaki tan. I'm going to mix that up really quick. And again, we're going to use our number 2 again. And I'm going to do the same concept of walking the dots. So again, just below the dots and work my way up. Okay, so if we're following along correctly, we should be falling on the 3rd line down from the center. So that's where our leaf pattern will finish. So the next part we're going to do is some sweeps. So we're going to put our stylus aside and we're going to pick up our brush out using the smallest brush. And I'm just going to lightly go into my green paint. I don't want a lot, just enough, so I like to spin the brush into the paint. Oh, and I'm also going to first do the white pearl, sorry. And we're going to make an anchor point first. We don't need to dilute this paint, we're just going to take it right out of the bottle. A number 2 stylus, and we're going to make an anchor point right below where the khaki tan was. 1 dot. This will help make our sweeps have less negative space to them. So now we can grab our brush. And at light pressure, we're just going to lay down that long bristle. So we push down, and then as we go up, we pull up lightly on the bristle. It's all about pressure and your wrist. So again, just lightly pull down and then pull up. So we're going to clean off our brush. Now we're going to go into our gold. Same thing with the brush. I'll zoom out a little bit so you could see. So we're going to follow the same curve. So I'm just going to follow the green as I go around. Make sure to be careful not to mix the paints, so if you want to take a break at the moment and let your paint dry, that would be great. I'm just doing this in real time. So now our last color is the khaki tan. And again, And I'm just going up until the two colors meet. I'm not going all the way through the actual space in between those walking dots. It's a very small swoop. Now that completes our swoops and our flower design. Now the next line down from where you left off, we're going to use our mink pearl. I'm going to clean my brush first, really quick. And I'm going to go with our number 2 stylus. I'm going into my mink pearl. And I'm just dotting right on the line. So I'm going to do a series of rows of dots going all the way around with this one. But I'm dotting right below that first line that is the next one to us that's available. Okay, so now the next part we're going to do is the series of the petals that we just did. We're going to go with a blue hue this time. So what we want to do is map out where we're going to be laying our first dots. Okay. We're going to go back with the mink pearl and do a second dot where we're going to start our petals. Where each of these segments follow, we're going to do a dot there. Okay. We're also going to do a segment in between where the swoops are. So again, we're going to do it where the dot falls there with the walking dots. So each of those areas will have a segment. Okay. So now with our number 2 and our mink pearl, we're just going to do one dot just below. Just like so. To zoom in, so let's do a dot right there. And I'm just following it down the area. I'm not really focusing on placing it below a dot in particular that I did the first row. Okay, so we're now going to go with our size 4, the purple stylus. And we're going to go into our gold. And we're just dotting below the mink pearl that we did. Okay. It should be able to fall on the line that goes around. Okay. If it doesn't, if it's a little bit below, that's okay, as long as you're trying to stay within reason of the same guideline. Okay. So if you're a little bit below, stay below. Don't go up higher on the next one, because then you'll be a little staggered. Okay. If you have dots that aren't falling on a vertical line, then just make sure that you create your own line, imaginary line, to stay within that area. Okay. So the next step we're going to do is the walking dots. Okay. We're going to go back to our mink pearl, and I'm using the number 1 stylus. Okay. We are working at such a small scale, so I'm going to be focusing on smaller dotting tools. So we're just going to walk our dots, and we want to fall in between the smaller dot and the gold dot. Okay, see how I'm falling in between those two. So it should look something like that. We're going to do them for every single one. Okay, I'll do one more to show you. So I'm just going to dot the bottom and walk my dots up and fall right in between the 2 dots. I'm not using much paint for this because it is such a small dotting tool as well, so remember that. Okay, so we'll do a quick time lapse. Great, so we finished that. So now we're going to keep going, and we're going to do the pearl white. We're going to flip it over and use the size 2. So again, dot right below. And now I want the white to fall right at the dot this time. Let's zoom in to show you. So I'm falling and just falling right at that dot, okay? So obviously, if you understand, the next one will probably be falling in between the rows of mink dots and then that top one, okay? It'll be at the top. So this is coming together nicely. Now we're going to go with our blue, okay, and we're going to use our size 3, the blue. And again, I'm dotting, and then I'm falling right at that corner. Again, I dot that dot again when I do the other side, and I work my way up. This just helps pull some of that excess paint off too when we first dot. So that's great. So while we still have the blue, we're going to flip it over to the size 2. Just use your white if you don't want to use that one, but just make sure it's a size 2. And we're going to go into our gold. And again, we're going to focus on those anchor points. That's what I like to call them, is anchor points. So the anchor points just are one dot that falls below your walking dot section. And this will help create, again, a base for our sweeps. Okay. So that's finished. Now we can go back into our brush. Get your brush out. We're going to go into our gold. And again, we're just starting right where the dot is, and we're going to apply light pressure and sweep up. Okay? You want to do a quick motion with these. If you feel like you need to take your time, then please do so, whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with. So we're finished now. We're going to go back and do another sweep. So we're going to go into our blue again. Let me zoom in to show you. So what we want to do is a little bit above where the gold sets. Alright, so we're going to kind of fall on that line. And I'm going to press and then just taper in. We're not going to go all the way up. And then also on the other side. Okay? And I join them together and bring it up into the center. As you can see, we're just doing a quick time lapse of these. So those are finished now. We're going to do one more thing, but we're going to wait till we're dry with our paint. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our gold and we're going to do a small swoosh in the center, going straight up. My paint is still wet, so I'm going to wait because I don't want it to mix. But just keep in mind we will be coming back to that. Okay, so in the meantime, what we can do is we're going to work on the areas in particular that are where the swooshes are. Not in the negative space, but where like the walking dot is, where the anchor points are. Okay, we're going to do a series of sweeps. We do have to keep in mind that the bottom half is going to be a gold band that mimics the other mandalas that we paint. Okay. And we are also going to do white pearl and mink pearl of a series of dot perimeter. Okay. So I'd say like the 3 lines that we're going to work with here to have a you know, a design element going on. We want to have a nice even space between the designs, okay? So I'm going to go with my small stylist. You can use a number 2, I wouldn't go anything above that. I'm going to refreshen my green paint. I'm just mixing my paints. So it doesn't matter which one, I'm just going to pick one of them and start with the area with the walking dots. And I'm going to imagine a diamond shape this time. So instead of the leaf oval, we're going to do a diamond. So I'm going to start right at the top and work my way down. I'm working on the line so I can use that as a guide. So I'm going to, you know, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about here. I'm going to come down a little bit out of an angle on each side, and I'm going to fall a little bit right below that next line as far as the tip of my diamond goes. Okay, so I have that nice little space there to work with. Because realistically, again, I'm working with those 3 lines right there from where the gold dot starts and ends down. Okay, so go to about the line, if you can, and then fall down a little bit below that line. Okay. So really just want to focus on making them look uniformed. If you'd like to sketch this out first with your pencil, by all means please do so. I'm just going to go ahead and wing it and paint it. So you really just want to make them look all similar, the best you can. So here's a time lapse of painting them. If you have to go back over and fix some of them, please do so as well. So those are the diamonds, that's what they should look like, okay? Now we're going to go into our gold and use our number 2 stylus. And I'm going to do 1 small dot again for an anchor point on all of them again. Now instead of using our brush, because we are getting very small, we're going to do our sweeps with a stylus. Okay, it's going to be the same concept if you were to do swooshes, basically, with the stylus pen. Okay, if I use number 1, it might not pick up enough paint and it might scratch, so we're going to try number 2. If it doesn't work and it's too much paint, we'll go back to the size 1. I think number 2 can be very well utilized with this part. So we're going to go into our green. And so we're just dotting it this time, and we're going to pull and swoop at a curve. Alright? It's like a crescent moon almost. So we're just curving around that diamond. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well for each one. So again, I'm going to dot it, and I'm going to pull around and just end at that top dot. Alright. So again, we're doing a time lapse. Great, so we're finished with that. It should look something like this. Now we're going to go into our khaki tan color. So refresh it if you need to. We're also going to use the same size stylus, so we're going to use the number 2 again. And these I'm just going to place right next to each other. They're not going to be a little higher, they're not going to be lower, they're going to be exactly next to each other. They're basically hugging each other like a row of soldiers, okay? And so we're going to do a time lapse of that and show you how they look. So that is our khaki tan, and we're going to keep building layers. So now the next color we're going to use is the Mississippi Mud. Alright, I haven't used this color yet, so I'm going to have to mix some up real quick. Again, I'm just using this straight out of the bottle now because I don't want to dilute my paints because they could potentially run together if they're too thin. So again, I'm just using straight out of the bottle, and I'm doing the same concept with the Mississippi Mud. So that's a close-up version of how it should start looking. And really just start following that curve until you can't go no more. Don't strain yourself by trying to get it all the way to the gold, as long as they start to curve and create that nice oval curved shape that we're creating, okay? So our brown is done. Now we're going to go into our cadmium yellow. Again, I'm just getting this right out of the bottle. If you find you are having a trouble, I would do a tiny little bit of water, but just make sure it's not thin to where they run together. Or take breaks to where the paint dries. Again, I'm just doing the yellow now. And that is finished. So hopefully you have you know, you have enough space to maybe just do one small swoosh in between them, okay? There are a few of them where they're kind of touching, but it's okay. So we're going to do the size 1, and we're going to do our gold. Now these are going to be extremely small swooshes with the size 1. Now, what I'm going to do, let me zoom in. So I'm just dotting this swoosh and pulling myself up, okay? And then I'm going to flip the stylus pen around, and I'm going to do a number 2 dot right below that. Again, so to just refresh, I'm going to do a swoosh with the number 1 and then a dot below it with the size 2 in the gold. And this just helps fill in that negative space. So now we're going to continue with our gold, and we're going to use our size 1. And be careful not putting your hand into the wet paint. If you want to wait until everything is dry again, please do so. I'm just going to do a quick swoosh though. So I'm dotting at the base towards the center dot. Let me zoom in. And then I'm going to pull down and make a small swoosh. Keep in mind not to get too much paint on your stylus when you're doing this, because it can create larger swooshes, and we want small thin ones. Now we're going to go with our pearl white. we're going to use the number 4 purple. And now below the base of that design that we just did with the sweeps, we're going to again lay the dots right at the base of that. So it's falling right below the line. Okay? Because the next line we're going to do the mink pearl. Alright? Alright, so we're almost finished. We're now going to go into the size 5 as the largest stylus pen, and we're going to go into our mink pearl. And with this one, we're just going to dot right on the line. Okay? So I'm kind of having that dot center. The line should be centered with your dot. And we're going to do that all the way around. So we're finished with our dotting. So put your dotting tools aside and pull out your square tip brush. Alright. I'm going to refreshen my gold a bit so that it's nice and smooth. And where that line, after that line I should say, we're going to paint a gold strip. I like to use the squared off tip like this because it does create a nice perfect line for you. So just with your steady hand, try your best to paint a nice gold band around the perimeter of your mandala. You will probably have to do like 2 or 3 coats of this because it can show through, especially using the black background. Alright, so I like to go back and let it dry and then do another coat. So once that's finished, like that, we can also go back through and do a little swoosh while you're letting the other paint dry. I am going to go with my cadmium yellow, just lightly dipping with my size 1. I'm going to make a small swoosh inside the green diamonds, just like so, okay? This is just like the part where I like to add my top dots, my extra added designs, okay? So one last thing, and then we're done with this, alright? And then after this, we are going to move right into doing our 4-inch. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to get our puffy 3D paint within the gold metallic. And these are going to be my top dots that I like to use. So I'm going to do one in the center, and then I'm going to do one on all of the gold around the blue area, okay? I believe it was anything that was a size 6 dotting tool. I'm just filling in that dot with the puffy paint. Make sure that you squeeze out excess air before you start. Otherwise they could explode and then you might have gold paint everywhere. So remember to keep that in mind. So I'm just applying light pressure to these, and I'm carefully filling in that dot that I had. The last thing I'm going to do obviously is do another coat of this you know, sides. I'm going to do the sides of the gold and around the perimeter. But that is your 6-inch mandala, guys. You did it. Alright. Okay guys, so we're going to keep going with this one. We're going to start with our 4-inch. I already mapped out these circles with my ruler, and I are now ready to do a stencil to get my sections that I need. So with this one, I'm not going to use the Protractor, obviously, like I just explained, because it doesn't fit on, and I cannot get an accurate description of the tick marks because they're not on the inside. So I'm not using the Protractor. I'm going to use one of these stencils. Usually when you start off dotting, you will get a kit, and these will come with them. What you want to make sure is that there are 16 segments, okay? So counting them all the way around, you'll get 16 lines. That's all I care about for this, alright? So I'm just centering it with my center dot that I have, my little marking. And then I'm just going to draw my lines all the way around. I don't need to make these, you know, side or horizontal lines there. I just want to do the vertical ones. So it should look something like that. Okay? So now we have 16. So in the beginning, we're going to do the same concept with the flower. So we're going to want 6 segments. Alright? So we want one on the bottom, one on the top. Alright? So what we're going to want to do is kind of have them staggered a bit. So we're going to have one on the top, one on the bottom, and then just eyeballing it, I'm going to have, you know, we're going to have one more down in the center, and then I'm going to erase these little marks that I did just so that I can get a better understanding of, you know, where I can get these markings properly done. So we're going to do in between the lines, not so much every other line. Okay, so I basically did a line on the top, I skipped a line, I skipped the next line too, and I did in between those, okay? Just so you get 6 nicely spaced areas. I'm going to start with the gold this time, okay? We're going to work in a really tiny scale on this, so we're really not going any bigger than a size 3 maybe, okay? I mostly will be using the size 1 and 2, so that light green color I have. The center dot I'm going to do number 3, which will probably be the largest dot that we have. So I'm going to go with the blue, the size 3. I'm going to use the gold, again, to remind you. And that's just going to be my center dot. Also, once again, because we are on such a small scale, I'm not really watering down my paint. I'm not thinning it out. So that is our number 3 dot. I know it looks very small compared to the other ones we did, but we are working on again, a small scale. So now with the number 2, I'm going to focus on doing the same points. So where the X's fall, I'm going to do dots. So with our pink pearl, I'm going to do a dot, sorry, I'm going to do a dot at the top, the bottom, and then again the upper corner. So it's kind of like, you know, you're doing 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. That's how we're kind of, you know, basing that on. It looks like a flower when you're finished. So now I'm going to turn it around and use the number 1, and very lightly, with just a little bit of paint, I'm going to do a tiny dot in between, and this is just going to help fill in that area that I have. Okay. Now from here we're going to do little tiny diamonds again, like we did the last mandala. So we're going to get our blue color, size 1 stylus. Gently and lightly I'm going to start. If you want to draw a line to go through, you can beforehand, but I'm just eyeballing. I'm going to start where that circle is that I drew out from the ruler, and I'm going to pull a little bit out to the left, a little bit out to the right. It sort of looks like a little bit of an arrow, and I'm going to join the two again, and I'm going to make a tiny little diamond. The diamond's kind of resting on the next line, if you notice. So where all your larger dots are that we did, we're going to make little diamonds. So, okay, so it should look something like that. I can go back and try to fix some of them if some of them look too small than the others, or skinny. They look skinny. So I'm just going to go back and touch them up a bit. So there's our diamonds. Now we're going to go into our mink pearl with our size 1, and I'm going to dot at the base of each diamond, and I'm going to do a series of walking dots basically. I'll do that for each one. So we finished our walking dots there. We're going to go into our pearl white, but we're staying with the same size this time. Okay, and we're just going to do another series of walking dots. So again, I'm just following the curve. And now we're going to go back into our blue. I'm going to add a little bit blue to mine because I need it. And again, I'm staying with the size 1. Normally you would go up in size with this, but because we are such a small scale, we don't want to have full control of the whole thing being just that small area. If you find you can't go all the way up with your dots, that's okay. Just stop where they stop. Alright. Hopefully if you have enough on your dotting tool, you should be able to just taper up very lightly with those dots. Okay. So that should be completing our flower. So that's our 6-point flower. we are going to go back into doing some sweeps. So we're going to go into our gold again, and we're going to quickly do an anchor point again. So now we can focus on doing our sweeps. So we're going to use the color Mink Pearl first. I'm just going to fill it up again because I need a little bit more. Okay. Again, I'm using the size 1 dotting tool, and I'm just going to dot next to the golds. I dot it a little bit so I get a nice amount of paint, and then I pull up in one sweeping motion. Try to go as far as you can. I'm not going all the way up to the center where the flower starts. I'm just kind of falling where the two dots meet, the blue dots. You'll do that for every side of them. This is a time lapse, so we're finished with our Mink Pearl. Now we can go into our white pearl. So once again, we're going to keep them close together. So if you need to let this dry first, please do so. This mandala may become a little bit tricky for you because it is on such a small scale, so just be patient with yourself. Okay, so I did the white, and now I'm going to go into doing the blue. So these are little baby ones, and they're really just filling in that small little area. If you notice, again, I'm not going all the way up. Alright, so that completes the flower pattern like we did the last time. To zoom out, that's what it should start looking like. So remember, the fourth line down will be the bar, again, the gold band. So that leaves us with the three lines. So we're going to focus on doing some walking dots again and some sweeps. What we want to do first is we're going to actually do some gold dots first. We're going to use a size 2. So again, I'm just doing a series of dots this time around the perimeter. So I'm leaving a tiny bit of space in between where the sweeps and the swooshes are and where the dots lay, okay? I just want to have a tiny little bit of black showing through, so I'm very steadily, very carefully aligning those dots. If you feel like yours are going to get a little crooked, then by all means, please just follow that line that is set there at that base, okay? And follow the line. It's up to you. I did the curve. So we're going to go with our number 2. So now we're going to dot again with the number 2 in the gold on every line this time. Alright, so you're going to have 16 dots, and remember, because we had 16 lines. So now we're going to flip it over and use a size 1. We're going to go into our green this time. And again, we're doing walking dots. Okay, these are teeny tiny little dots. If you notice, I can zoom in. I'm only getting about 3 dots on each side, just to show you. It's a very small section of walking dots. I would prefer to clean off my tool every time I do this as well, so that you get the same size dots. It can be a little tedious, but it does work out well. Okay, so we're going to move into our white now. And again, with the size 1, we're going to walk our dots again. This time you might get a little bit more than 3, obviously. Wonderful, so that's finished. We're going to move into the last color, which is going back to the gold. I'm going to use the same size. I'm not going up in size. And I'm going to do one last row of walking dots. When you do this, just do one extra dot below it, because that will be our anchor point again. Okay. Great, so we finished our walking dots. Now we're going to use our size 1 dotting tool again, and we're going to do some pretty small sweeps with these. We're going to go into our blue, and I'm going to dot and pull up again like I did the last time. And again, where the dots start to come together is where I'm going to stop with my swoosh, okay, my swoop. Alright, so we're finished with our blue swoops. Now we're going to go into our white. Again, with the same size, number 1. I'm just going to do the same concept again. It's a lot of repetitive this time around, so we should be getting the hang of how to do these now. Just please be careful that you don't mix your paints, so if you are very wet with your paints and you don't feel comfortable doing, wet paint next to wet paint, make sure the other stuff is dry first, so if you need to come back to it, please do so. So good, we finished our white. Now we could go right into doing our gold, our number 1. And we're just going to dot and pull up. It's like a half a swoosh we're basically doing with this one. I'm not pulling up all the way through the white and the blue. I'm just kind of going up to the white and stopping. Alright, so our the next step was going to be to do a series of diamonds. So where the swoops were, we're going to do little diamonds, okay? With my blue and my #1 stylus, I'm going to start at one of where the swoops are, not the walking dots, but the swoops. And I'm going to dot and zoom in so we could see. I'm going to dot where the center swoosh is, pull down, and then make a small little diamond. So I want to make sure that I have some negative space from that second to last line and the bottom one, because that bottom is going to be the gold band. So I want some sort of negative space there. So again, I'm really just coming down and I'm making sure I stop at that next line with the tip of the diamond. Again, try your best to just make sure that the diamonds are all the same, you know, size, the shapes. So our diamonds are finished. So with our size 1 again, we're going to go with our white pearl, and I'm just doing 1 dot below each diamond. Now we're going to go into some yellows. So we're going to do the deep ochre, and with the size 1 again, dotting tool, we're going to start our sweeps again. So again, we're going to start right on the line and dot and pull at an angle. So we'll do both sides to that. Now we can go into the gold. Let's zoom in so we could show you. And again, I'm just going right next to the yellow, and I'm just following the curve. This is a great exercise and technique, you know, to getting these properly done. Okay, so I'm also going to speed this up a little bit, and I'm going to do the green after the gold, just to show you, because I'm going to speed all this up with a time lapse. Alright, so we'll do the other side as well with these. So make sure you do your gold and then your green. So I finished those. I didn't record the time lapse, sorry. And that should be what your completed look should look like. And then the base, again, we're just going to get our square tip brush in the gold, and again we're just going to paint that nice gold band around it. May remember to do the sides as well if you have a thicker mandala. Mine are at 1/4 of an inch, so you can see the sides, so I want to paint the sides as well. Just like that. I'll show you real quick, okay? And this will complete our painting tutorial for our 3-piece dreamy mandala dream catcher, okay? So after we do all this, I will go right into doing drilling the holes and attaching the feathers, and then that should complete our project, guys, okay? If you're staying with me through all of this, I want to thank you so much for your support, and I will see you back here soon with the next part, okay? Hi everyone, welcome back to the last part of our tutorial. So we have finished our 3 mandalas, we've painted our sides, we have everything ready to go. We're going to get out a black Sharpie or a pen, and I'm just going to quickly demonstrate for you how to mark your areas to drill your holes. So we're going to start with our 12-inch first. And what I'm going to do is kind of line up the triangles towards the center so that I know where to hang my top portion. And then I'm also going to mimic on the bottom as well. And I'm going to do 3 holes on the bottom. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit so we could see. You can get a ruler out if you'd like to try and line up with the center dot the best you can. I'm trying to line it up with the dot and the triangles, or I'm sorry, the diamond shapes. So I'm going to mark at the top, and then I'm also going to mark the bottom portion as well. Zoom out so I can show you, so we can all see. I'm just going to turn it around. So the bottom, I'm going to line up and have the same thing. So I'm going to dot the center part. And then I'm just going to count the walking dot sections, so the segments. So I'm going to count 3 over from the center, and I'm also going to do 1, 2, and 3. This way I have 3 holes in the bottom, and that will tie into the 6-inch one, the next mandala, and then I'll also hang the ostrich feathers from those. So the same concept with the 6-inch. We're going to okay, so now the 6-inch we're going to line up with the center dot again. And this one has everything lined up accordingly, so I can just eyeball this one. I'm going to dot that, follow it down, and then I'm going to dot one on the bottom. Okay. And so for the 6-inch, we're also going to have 3 dots on the bottom. Okay, so you'll have your center. Because it's a smaller scale, we're gonna I'd say we'll do 2 out, okay? So we're going to count, not the first one, but 1 and then 2. So I'm dotting on the, technically, if you count the center, the 3rd one up, okay? Now we're going to drill those holes as well. So the outer will be for feathers and beads, and then the bottom will be to connect the 4-inch. Again, we're going to do the same concept and follow it up and dot a center. Alright. It's probably best to just try to eyeball it the best you can, or if you want to use a ruler. Hopefully you'll have your alignments with your dots already, so you know it works. So we're just going to do 1 on the bottom, and that's going to hang an ostrich feather. If you'd like to do a couple more holes and hang more beads, by all means, go ahead. You can be creative with this, okay? So here we are at our station. So we have our holes that we're ready to drill. Just quickly demonstrating and showing you again where they are lined up. Okay. And then from there, I want to show you, so I either use this small tabletop drill press. It's fantastic. You can also use a really large one. My husband and most husbands usually have those large ones in their workshop. I opted to get this little guy myself. It's by the name Proxen. They make fabulous small tabletop machinery. So they have all sorts of different kinds of products. I think I bought this one off Amazon, so I'll leave a link in the description. But it is a good investment, especially if you get crafty with making your mandalas and you want to start tying some together, making things like that. It's just a really great and easy to use piece of machinery. The large one, it is quite bulky and large, and if it's all you have, then that's great. You can also opt to use a handheld drill. So you can use a handheld drill and just add in the drill bit to it and then work on a flat surface somewhere that will be able to drill. I am using the size, I think it's 1/8 of an inch drill bit, and then no, I'm sorry, correct me, it's 3/32 of a drill bit, okay, the size, and that will draw that small little circle that we have. Please be careful if you're drawing them that you know, when you're drilling it, you're lining up to where it's not going to crack it and it's not going to break it, okay? So again, this is just a quick time lapse of drilling the holes. You see how easy it is to just do one quick one. It cuts time in half and it's very easy. If I can do it, you can do it. And again, I just have a little station set up with this and it works out really, really well. I know the drill is a large investment and it can be pricey, so, you know. Okay, so we're back. So now this is the last part of our tutorial, okay? Now that we've gotten our holes drilled and we have them all laid out, some of the products you'll need is needle nose pliers. Basic pliers would work too. I do like the small ones. You can find them in Walmart, any craft section, usually where they sell jewelry. They have things like this. Also get a pair of scissors. I'm using this leather straps. It's like a leather rope, so to speak. I got this from Amazon. I'll leave the link in the description as well. Something small enough that will be able to fit through your hole. I'm actually using these, I think they're rooster feathers. So I got these, and I'm also using white ostrich feathers. I also have these natural beads that I found online. I will be make sure that I add the descriptions and links to everything that I found for you. I also bought these are cord ends, so they're fold over cord ends, and they help keep your feathers attached and it makes it look nice and neat. I'm going to use the gold color for this to match the gold and yellow on my mandala. That's what they look like. So again, yeah, you want to put the cord in and you put the feather and you clamp it together with your pliers. I don't know if anybody has worked with this before, but it's quite simple to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some cord first. So I'm going to start with the top and I'm going to thread it through. I'm going from the front to the back. And I'd say depending on how much, length you want, I'm I'm gonna double up on it so that I can tie it so it can be something to hang. I'd say I have about 4 inches. So I'm going to cut those together, and then I'm just going to tie them together with a knot. I'm also going to put 2 beads, so I'm going to string them on both of them. This will just kind of give it a decorative purpose and you know, tie it in nicely at the top. Now I can either tie it or I can use one of those cords. I'm going to just tie it. And really with the leather, you're just going to tie it once and it should hold up pretty well. Alright, so there's my hanging top. The next part, I'm going to flip it around so I can show you the base. I'm going to focus on the center hole, which is going to attach to your 6-inch mandala. I'd say in between them, I'm probably going to do about, I'd say 2 inches of cord. Not much. You don't want it to be too long and lanky. So I'd say 2 inches would be just enough. So I'm going to feed through the front of the 6-inch and then the back of the 12-inch so it comes back around. Okay. I am pulling some extra so it's doubled up. This is just to measure your cord, okay, so that you know exactly where it's going to fall. I'm going to pull it out of the bottom half first. So now I'm going to loop some beads through them. So I'm going to loop it through both of them. It kind of acts as a, it's like a paracord tightening thing. Okay, so I'm going to loop it through the front and go to the back, and then I'm just going to tie those off. Actually, I think I'm going to clamp these ones so you don't see them. So I'm going to clamp them with these. You can also tie them. If you also have a better way of doing this, please, by all means, please do so. This is just how I do it. I also, okay, so to do these, you're going to pinch one side and then you're going to pinch the other side so they fold into each other. Now that can be hidden behind, because I am going to lay this one flat against a wall. Depending on how you've painted yours, you could do front and back and hang it somewhere so it spins around. You can get all different ideas from how to hang these. I'd say this side I'm only going to do about, I'd say maybe 1.5 inches, I'd say. Not much. You don't want them too lanky and too long in between each other. So again, I'm only eyeballing this, but I'd say I'd have about 1.5 inches of cord. Again, I'm going to feed it through the back, and then I'm going to feed it so it comes down. Again, I'm going to do a bead. If you notice, guys, I did forget to do a bead, so just go ahead and add one, please. And then do your clamp, okay? So now I can focus on the folds that are going to do the feathers. So I'm just doing one piece of cord, I'm not doubling it up. So I would eyeball just to see where it can hang, because keep in mind you do have a long feather that's also going to be attached. Okay, I am going to fold them over and I'm going to cut two of them. So I'm going to cut on both ends. That too. This way I have two of the same size that you could go identical, because if you do them separately, one could be shorter than the other. So I'm just feeding them in from front to back, like so. So on the back side, I am just going to tie a knot. One knot should be sufficient for the size of the hole. Okay, try to tie it towards the top, not so much in the center, because it will make the size differently. So you should have a length like that. So now for the small 6-inch, we're going to do the rooster feathers. So I'm going to pick a couple out that look nice and straight and fairly full. So I double up and I do two of them because they're small. So you're going to place them in. You want them to be in the front part of your so where the handle is, okay? So it's going to be in the front part, because when you flip it around, that's what you're going to want to see, not so much the cord. The cord's going to be placed behind that, so it's just enough to be in there. And then carefully you're going to clamp one side and then clamp the other side over it. This does take a bit of practice, and even I'm still working at this, so in time, you know, things will come easier. If you're a jewelry maker, you should get this down pat. You're probably already used to this. So that's one side. Also, I meant to tell you, because I didn't do this as well, my mind has escaped me. I was doing some beads. So before I clamped the feathers down, I wanted to do 3 beads on each side. Okay, so before either you tie the knot in the back or before you put on the clamps, you can even do all of these ahead of time and then just attach them to your mandala. That would work too. But I did forget to put on my beads. On the original one I showed you, I do have, I believe, 3 on each side. See, I just realized I forgot to add my beads. Okay, so I do untie it. Sorry guys, I am doing a voiceover on this video, so there were some things that I didn't remember what I did. I had to record with a different camera, and I didn't record sound, so I think you do get the gist of it though. Okay. Okay, and so the last part, we're going to do just the end. I'd say about 1 inch of cord. Maybe cut about 1.5 inches just because you're going to tie the back of it. If it is too long, I can always cut it back. I will let you be the judge and use your discretion on how you want your feathers to fall. So I'm going to get another packing. I'm going to get an ostrich feather out this time. Yeah, they were fairly priced online, so you know, I'll leave the link for you. I'm gonna clip a little bit of that back too. They do have all different colors for this website, and they're really nice and soft and beautiful, so they're worth the money. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same concept. I'm going to put the feather in first, and then I'm going to put my cord in, and then I'm going to clamp it. With these larger feathers, it can be a little bit complicated to try and get the feathers in with the cord, so just be patient with yourself. So I'm doing the cord going the opposite direction and the feather coming up. And then we're just going to close that up. If you do find you have excess cord sticking out, just trim that back. So I'm going to do 3 beads. Like I said earlier, it would probably be best to make all of these in advance, and then you can just attach them all. I would say so. I think my other dream catchers I made, I did that concept. Okay, so I'm going from the front to the back, and then I'm tying it again. And so there's our bottom half. Okay. If you want to do 2 more, you can do natural feathers, or you could do just beads. Like I said, always just be your own judge and be creative with it. I'm really just trying to show you the whole gist of how to make this kind of project. So again, I'm going to go back to my 12-inch, and I do have to keep in mind that these should be a little bit shorter, only because they're going to have ostrich feathers falling, and they're much longer. Okay. So I think I'm doing about 1.5 inches. So again, I'm measuring one side, folding it over, and then I'm cutting them. Okay. This way you have both the same length. So get 2 ostrich feathers out. The ends I usually clip because I don't need that excess. It'll be sticking out of the clamps. I get 2 more of my clamps. And again, I'm just going to add some, I'm going to feed through the cord first, add the feather, and then I'm going to add the beads. So that's one feather. And again, if you want to go with, you know, a different color bead, that's fine. If you want to go with a monochromatic with using yellows or blues, you can do anything you want, really. Whatever you have on hand. I personally like the natural feathers and the natural beads. So I'm just going to tie the back again with a knot. So again, I'm just going to attach the cord to the feather with the clamp. So that completes our project, guys. We have our 12-inch with the 2 ostrich feathers. We have our 6-inch hanging piece. And then we have our natural feathers with that. And then we have our 4-inch. Again, if you want to add some additional holes and add more feathers or beads, please do so. But this does complete our Dreamcatcher mandala. I want to thank all of you for staying with me and working through this project. I hope some of you, you know, stay with me, and please subscribe and like and share through Facebook groups and everything else. Your support means a lot to me, and looking forward to the next project. So take care, guys. Bye.